So when you hear classroom, you think of a traditional room with many desks all in rows facing the front of the room with a chalkboard and a teacher. Now this teacher is supposed to teach you things about math, history, English, science, and it's a place in school where you're supposed to learn the most and your teacher is supposed to teach you the most. My sophomore year, I embarked on something a little bit different, Science Olympiad. So I remember my first meeting, walking in, seeing the two coaches, and one of them was very young. He was a new teacher the year before. I knew him from watching him 1v1 a senior in basketball the year before. Pretty sure he lost. But the other coach was someone I knew but didn't actually know. He was a physics teacher at the school, and he had long hair, very deep voice, and big bushy eyebrows. And at first impression, you'd think he was the type of teacher to find the person who didn't write his name on the paper, crumple it up in their face, and give them a 0 for it. But during the meeting, he told everyone what they should be doing, told them all that they should be finding events that seemed interesting to them, and then read the rules based on those events and make sure that they're still interesting to you. So I found 3 events, one being rocks and minerals, another experimental design, and Mission Possible. At the end of the meeting, he gave us time to read all of the rules for these, and rocks and minerals seemed pretty self-explanatory. You had to identify rocks and minerals. And during experimental design, you just got a whole bunch of random materials, and you had to create a lab on them and just write down all these things and take a test, basically. And for Mission Possible, it was a little bit different. It was a Rube Goldberg machine, which is a machine that has a whole bunch of tiny tasks that lead to one greater task. Of course, I did not have enough time during the meeting to read the rules for this event, so I had no idea what I was getting myself into when the next meeting, he assigned all 3 of these events to me. So during my preparation for all of these events, I took a day off from school to do rocks and minerals, and just made a binder filled with all these pages of pictures of all these rocks and minerals, and just all of these random facts about them, its competition, its scientific name, its luster, streak, all of these things. My partner did the same for the rocks, and we eventually made a 1.5-inch binder for all of these things. Now, my preparation for that event was basically done, but Mission Possible, I still had a lot of work to do. So for Mission Possible, after indoor track practice, 3 times a week, I would go work on this event. And didn't really get that far, but I learned what an endothermic reaction was and an exothermic reaction was, just from Google. And I found one of these reactions, and I had to fill a balloon with the gas that was created from this reaction. So I found a reaction, just played around with it basically, and then just made an action for this Mission Possible, just one singular action out of 27. And that was basically everything I got done for Mission Possible. And I realized the little bit that I had done for Mission Possible and went to go tell my coach with big bushy eyebrows about it, because I just didn't want to do it because I realized that it wasn't going to be good. I went to talk to him, told him that I wasn't going to live up to his standards, and that's when I realized that he wasn't so scary, and he was very reasonable. I was telling him about how I didn't want to do it whatsoever, and he told me that I just had to push through, finish it, and other people that go to this event will probably have nothing, and anything will be better than nothing. So of course, me not listening to anything he said because I just didn't want to do it, just kept whining to him, and the more I whined, the less reasonable he got, and I ended up bringing what I built to the competition. So competition day came, and my first 2 events were rocks and minerals and experimental design. This left me with an anxiousness in my stomach all day for Mission Possible. And rocks and minerals was first. I felt I did pretty good. Ended up getting second in the competition. And experimental design was a blast with my 2 teammates, and we got third in that event. But Mission Possible was at 12:45. And the two captains of our team had an event at 12:15 that everyone would go watch. I remember going to go watch this at 12:15, and I remember like seeing half our team just watching it, like up against the railing near the caution tape, protecting the event. And walked over there. They had to do a mousetrap car that would go a certain amount of distance and stop. And they did it absolutely perfectly. Everyone started clapping. They even told the person that was running the event something that he did wrong. Everyone started to clap, and I realized at this point that I could try and escape and get to my event before anyone had enough time to follow me. So while everyone was clapping, I sneaked behind them and went to my event, grabbed my oversized chemistry goggles and apron, and went to set up the little bit of Mission Possible that I had. As I was setting up to lift a magnet to set the golf ball down a ramp to start one of those reactions, I went to lift up the magnet, watched the golf ball go down the ramp, looked in the doorway and saw both my coaches walk in. I immediately looked back down at the golf ball going down the ramp, and by the next time I looked up, my goggles were fogged up and I was crying. I was crying because I realized how bad it was and that people actually saw it besides me at this point. So I just wanted to get out of there as fast as I could, but once the balloon didn't fill up at all, everyone in the room started to clap, and the people running the event gave me a pity good job, like a participation award, and I just walked across, trying to get out of there as fast as I could, over to the doorway to my two coaches. I remember them asking me what was wrong, and I remember saying nothing, but that was exactly the issue. They laughed and then proceeded into a conversation that has been engraved in my mind ever since. They first started off by telling me about how it was over, and I actually went through and finished what I had started and did better than half the other kids that went to this event. Then he told me that failure was the only way in which we progress. And at the time, I did not think anything of it because I was crying and just wanted nothing to do with this and just to go back and make sure no one saw me in this state. So on the way back to the team room, we started to tell jokes to one another to just put a mask over this failure. And I just tried to stay in the corner and make sure no one saw me like this. So the two coaches that told me that were Mr. Musso and Mr. Piccirillo. Both of them have taught me many lessons like this. If it was before a big game, before Science Olympiad competition, just anything like this. And they also taught me that kinetic energy equals 1/2 mass times velocity squared in a classroom preparing for an energy test. But all these things that I've learned from them in not a conventional manner, but not in a classroom, have stayed with me for much longer than preparing for an energy test. There are many other ways that this has happened throughout my school career. For example, the social aspect of school. I've probably met and are friends with all the people in school because of school. It's not like a teacher sits in front of a classroom flipping through a PowerPoint and telling you how to shake someone's hand or start a conversation with someone or how to have an inside joke. Just comes to you through school, but not in the conventional manner. Another personal experience I have with this, it was my junior year, 7th period. I had a study hall, and I was telling my soccer team about it, and Mr. P was a coach, and he told me that I could go into his room during this time. And I went there, and the next period, 8th period, I had an overwhelming class. And I was often cramming in homework and complaining about it to him. So then he told me a story about a kid that he was watching during a summer job that fell on the tarmac and screamed bloody murder over a scraped knee. Now, me being a 16-year-old did not think that a scraped knee was anything to cry about, but this kid had experienced the worst pain of his life over a scraped knee, and that was something for him to cry about. Now, I was crying about the homework that I had the next period, and him telling me this made me realize that something so small, like getting a scraped knee, will soon be overtaken later in life by something more difficult. This saying has even popped in my head while writing this TED Talk. Soon, when I'm having college courses jammed down my throat, I will wish I was back in this very moment giving a TED Talk to all of you, which is very difficult right now. But all of these things that I've learned in a not so conventional way through school will stay with me for much longer than knowing a random fact about Sherman antitrust acts or a random chemistry fact. Thank you.